Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's show. We're thrilled to be talking about the upcoming IGEL Now and Next event, which is returning to beautiful Miami at the Fontainebleau Hotel. And it's just around the corner. So to dig into that topic a bit more, we're excited to be joined today by our friend, Carl Gersh, the SVP of Marketing at IGEL. Carl, as always, it's great to have you back on the show.
Well, thanks, guys. It's a pleasure to see you again, and I can't wait to get together in Miami.
It's going to be a fantastic event, as always, I'm sure. Last year, you guys launched a new event format with Now and Next, but 2026 feels very different moment for IGEL. You're putting zero trust enforcement, resilience, and prevention for security front and center. What's shifted in the market that made you lean into these themes so heavily this year, and why is Miami in 2026 the right place and time for this type of conversation?
Dave, I think what's shifted is urgency. Over the last year, organizations have realized that detection and response alone aren't enough. Ransomware, AI-powered phishing, supply chain attacks, threat actors are faster, more automated, and more opportunistic than ever. At the same time, distributed work, SaaS sprawl, and unmanaged endpoints have expanded the attack surface pretty dramatically. So security leaders are no longer asking if they should adopt zero trust. They're asking how to operationalize it in a way that is both enforceable and measurable. And that's why we're leaning into zero trust enforcement. We're talking about resilience. We're looking at a prevention-first security stance. Prevention reduces risk before it becomes an incident, and resilience ensures that you have continuity even when something goes wrong. And I always feel like enforcement at the endpoint, right, that control point closest to the user is foundational and sometimes maybe overlooked. So Miami in 2026 is the right place and the right time because organizations are finalizing their 3 to 5 year security architectures right now. They're deciding where to simplify, where to consolidate, and where to make zero trust real, not just theoretical. And Now Next is the location, is the event where those decisions are going to get shaped.
And so I understand for the event, you've secured retired General Paul Nakasone, who's the former NSA Director and Cyber Command Leader, as your keynote speaker. That's kind of different for an IGEL conference. What does this signal about IGEL and how you're positioning yourself? And what do you think attendees are going to learn from someone of that level of expertise about securing endpoints in 2026?
I think what it really signals is that the conversation that we want to have is bigger and broader than just talking about products. Right? So General Nakasone, he led the NSA and the U.S. Cyber Command. He understands like nation state level threats. Right? He's experienced in cyber deterrence and large scale digital defense, at a level very few people do. Bringing him to Now Next underscores that the endpoint security isn't just an IT issue. It's really like a high level infrastructure level of risk management. So what can attendees expect? It also signals that this is, as I said earlier, it's not a product pitch. It's about providing perspective on how modern adversaries think and operate, right? So the threats that face a nation are not that unlike the threats that face a large enterprise. I think you also get some views on why resilience has to be built in and not just bolted on. And really about how public and private sectors have to align on this concept of prevention. As if people have attended our previous events or they're familiar with IGEL, they know that the preventive security model and the message we deliver around not just the MDR aspect of cybersecurity, right? The monitor, detect, remediate. Not that that's not important, but if all you're doing is that, you're overlooking a very, very key element of your strategy, which should be around the prevention, in as much as possible, of those types of intrusions. So I think overall, you're going to get an idea on what strategic cyber leadership should look like in 2026. It's really about elevating the endpoint strategy from a tactical control to mission level resilience. And that's a conversation that we want to host, and we think that General Nakasone is going to be able to get people's mindset centered around.
Now, I mean, right there, that's a great keynote. That's something new and fresh personally that I haven't seen of all the years of me attending different trade shows. And IGEL, you in particular, you've done a great job year after year. Every IGEL event that I've gone to, the keynote stage always has, a who's who list of people talking and educating folks. So, with that said, who are some of the other notable, speakers and industry experts that you guys have lined up for this year's event? And maybe without giving any trade secrets away, what perspectives and insights can attendees expect that these thought leaders will provide?
Sure. So we've announced a few of our keynote speakers. There are some that we will be announcing. But overall, our approach was to create a lineup that takes both industry vision and real world execution and bring those experts to the forefront. We understand that the IGEL Now Next conference is not an end user conference for people that are consuming IGEL today, but it really is designed to be that event where you can go to develop your strategy as it relates to endpoint security and EUC, end user compute. So to that end, we are certainly excited to welcome back Mark Templeton, former CEO of Citrix, who honestly, in many ways, is one of the key executives who shaped the modern digital workspace category, right? Mark is well known. He brings, I think, phenomenal perspective, sense of humor, sense of humanity, and asks some thought-provoking questions. And I think we should expect the same of him this time. We're also excited to have Shankar Iyer, the CEO of Omnissa, to come to us and provide some forward-looking perspective on where the workspace and the endpoint ecosystem is heading. I mean, the reality is we've seen a lot of change in the last several years in end user compute. Organizations have combined. I mean, IGEL ourselves, we acquired Stratadesk and have been thrilled. This past year has been really exciting work with the Stratadesk team. But we've seen a lot of change, a lot of combinations, a lot of things happening in EUC. I think Omnissa is really poised to be a key player for people who are looking forward in their strategy. And I think Shankar is going to be able to provide a great insight as to where things are headed. Beyond that, we will also have security and IT leaders from healthcare, from financial services, and from critical industries / government, participating and lending their voices and their perspectives to the conversation. So there'll be keynotes, there'll be some panel discussions. We're actually, one of the things we're changing is we're going to have a keynote on the first day. We'll have a keynote in the morning. We're going to also have a keynote in the afternoon. So rather than have it be a very long marathon keynote, we're going to separate it and break it up a bit because there's just so much content to deliver, so much to talk about, so many experts that we want to bring to the forefront, to share their real world zero trust and resilience journeys, right? What worked, what didn't work, and how they're operationalizing enforcement at the endpoint. So our focus isn't, again, just about product. It's really about practical insight, and bringing those leaders actively building and securing, the modern workspace environment, not in theory, but actually in lived experience.
So let's talk a little bit about your tagline. Your tagline is zero trust in practice, not zero trust theory. That's a meaningful distinction, and maybe you can kind of walk us through what that actually means for someone who's sitting in the audience, and what's one concrete example of how an enterprise can leave Miami with a playbook of how to implement zero trust at their endpoint layer?
Oh, what a great question. Thank you. I mean, it is zero trust is in almost every conversation we're having. Organizations are looking to see how do they contextualize it, how do they put it into practice. So I'm going to give you my perspective on this, and I'll give some a little bit more than just one concrete example in a sense of what people can expect and what they can walk away from this event with, right? So zero trust in practice means enforcement that you can operationalize immediately, right? We got to move beyond the theory and the whiteboards to what can we do to reduce the endpoint attack surface by eliminating unnecessary local OS complexity and enforcing application controls. So what we expect is that an enterprise would attend our event and leave Miami with a playbook that would include probably 5 key things, right? Number one, an understanding and a playbook on how to standardize with a secure endpoint operating system designed for least privilege, right? And that's a principle of the concept of zero trust. 2, they can look at how they can enforce read-only system partitions to prevent persistence, right? So persistence oftentimes is the enemy of protection, right? 3, looking at identity-based conditional access with endpoint posture. We will talk in Miami about the adaptive secure desktop and how we're building IGEL and putting IGEL out as a platform that will help organizations realize that benefit. The other, in addition, like four, I think restricting execution to trusted policy-defined applications, right? So there's identity-based access, there's policy-defined application execution, right? And zero trust is understanding how these things work, and then thinking about how do you operationalize them, how do you put them into play that allows an organization to continue to be productive, but also be secure. And I think the fifth one, and perhaps most important, is measuring attack surface reduction over time, right? So as I said before, and I always like to point out that when we think about the different vectors that an organization can be attacked, right? The endpoint oftentimes is the widest, it's the broadest, and sometimes it's the hardest to really protect, right? There's a lot of great technology companies, many of whom are IGEL ready partners, focus on things like the network, the transport, the firewalls, and so on and so forth. But the endpoint is all those endpoints you have 10,000 users, you have 10,000 potential areas of vulnerability. And zero trust and some of the ideas and technologies that IGEL is bringing to bear with our partners is going to help reduce that attack surface, and that will bring demonstrable benefit to the organizations. And overall, we want this to be actionable. We want it to be measurable, right? We want to talk about how we're moving this from, dare I say, slideware, at the risk of offending my fellow marketers, but really to implementation. And I think we're going to hear a lot of that. Again, the experts that we have, the announcements we're going to make are really going to be around, those concepts.
Now, I love the entire, the whole zero trust in practice thing. And, I've been to every IGEL event so far in the U.S. and security, as going back as far as I can remember, has always been a key point, obviously, in the discussion of what IGEL is bringing to the event, to attendees. But thinking about, this focus on zero trust, there are obviously other endpoint security vendors, other conferences, other places that you can go learn about resilience and zero trust. But why, for IGEL Now and Next, why should a busy CIO or a CISO choose to spend, 4 days in Miami at this event specifically?
Excellent. All right. So I think there's three things. If I was to articulate, what you're going to get from Now and Next that you're not going to see other places. So first is really this endpoint first zero trust focus. I'm with you, Dave. I'd say that there's a lot of cybersecurity conferences. There's not a lot of conferences that really focus on the endpoint element of cybersecurity. And I think it's really important. Most conferences will treat an endpoint as just one checkbox amongst many. We're really looking at as the enforcement layer that makes zero trust real. So there's a technology focus. I think also, though, and this is an area that has been a big growth area for IGEL, an area of focus for IGEL, is to cultivate and to enable peer-level strategy conversations. It's not a massive expo floor. It's not an internationally curated environment. It is intentional to provide CISOs, to provide practitioners, to provide CIOs with the chance to network with one another, to speak candidly about architecture, to talk about budget, talk about board pressure. We want to enable those opportunities for dialogue. That's why it's a multi-day event. That's why we have on Tuesday night, we have the open night. Tuesday night, we have the VIP programs. We have the roundtables. We want to drive and provide opportunity for those conversations, because it's very easy when you're in your office, you're working, you've got deadlines, you've got release schedules, you have things like that. The chance to network, to talk with your peers around this topic is limited, and we want to make sure that we're giving everyone that opportunity. And then the third area, I'd say, and again, maybe it is I drink the Kool-Aid pretty regularly here at IGEL, but IGEL really, this prevention first philosophy, right? I said it before, and I truly believe that one of the blind spots is that the industry in general has leaned very heavily into this detection response. We take that as that's what you got to do. It's the old chestnut, like it's not if you're going to get hacked, it's when. And I'm not saying we're eliminating that entirely, but I think that we don't pay enough attention. We have not really put into practice this concept, this philosophy of what can we do to try and prevent, right? Let's not give up on that idea. And what can we do to prevent? And then what do we do in the event? Like, how do we provide, resilience if something were to happen? And sometimes what happens, it may be malicious, it may be accidental. I mean, we've seen there's been some incidents in the past few years where an accidental change has brought down a lot of endpoints. So I think with IGEL, the two areas that we've been focused on obviously is around a preventative security model and extending that out, but also with our BCDR solution, which is all about having IGEL operating system on devices that are running Windows every day. But in the event that something goes wrong with Windows, you hit a button and boom, you're in an IGEL environment. You truly maintain that continuity while you get things back up and running. And I think these are two areas that we believe very strongly in, and that we are really at the forefront of championing not just the technology to make it happen, but again, I'll say the philosophy of the thought process to make this a priority. So my hope is that a busy CIO or CISO is going to leave with clarity on the architecture, on the consolidation, and how to explain this preventative strategy to their board, so they can make it a reality.
Now, Carl, I understand you're bringing back the now and next theme again this year. Clearly, some stuff has changed. What did you learn from last year's event and the attendees, and how did that shape how you're building the event this year in Miami? What are some of the things that returning attendees should know about?
Oh, that's a great question. So it's as a marketer that puts on an event like this, it's very important that we collect feedback at the end of every event. And while it's always rewarding to see the positive feedback, and I'll say that we're over 90% of attendees indicate that they will come back the next year. Over 90% of attendees tell us that this event met or exceeded their expectations. What we really pay attention to is what are the things that people say they'd like to see more of. And I think last year we validated was that there's an appetite for deeper and more strategic content. What we did hear from attendees was, hey, we'd like to see some more sessions on hands-on implementation guidance. We'd like to see some more peer roundtables. We'd like to get a little bit deeper into the security architecture. So that's what we did for 2026. We've expanded the technical breakouts to focus on enforcement and resilience. We have added several curated tracks, including tracks for CISOs, for healthcare professionals, for critical industry professionals, to allow them to network with one another and to get content specific to the challenges that they're facing. We're going to have a lot of live demos. We're going to have a lot of practical hands-on examples and workshops. And again, we've got these learning tracks, right? We started, I would say, 2 years ago with putting some content into tracks. So if you're a healthcare professional, we can give you a curated experience where some of the content is a little bit more broad, but some of the content is very specific to healthcare and the challenges healthcare is facing. So that depending on what industry you're in, you're going to get content specific to your industry. And same with role and maturity, right? So we have content that is more strategic for IT leaders. We have content that is a little bit more practical for the practitioner. So we continue to try and evolve and mature the content that we deliver. I think overall, you're going to see a sharper focus on the idea of, how do we make these things real and how do we deliver measurable outcomes? I will also throw a quick plug in here that we will offer the IGEL certified professional boot camps. So people that want to come out and get certified in IGEL, they can. And for the first time, we'll be offering CPE credits for government employees through our relationship with Carasoft. So if you're a government employee or employee in critical sector, coming to IGEL Now Next not only is going to help broaden your perspective, give you those networking opportunities, but there'll be CPE credits. And we do have a hotel option that falls within government guidelines. So those are just a few of the things. But we really look at, we challenge ourselves every year to say, how do we make this a little bit better? How do we make it a little bit more fun? How do we make it a little bit more engaging? So that we can, the people that come, again, I'd like to see when they tell me that we've exceeded their expectations. And for the first timers, they realize, this special thing that we've built with the community.
Kind of, piling on to that, obviously, I know you guys last year and now this year again, you added the extra day from previous IGEL events, and that was in large part to growing the breakout sessions and all of the technical sessions that you guys continue to add. And you touched on this a bit, but maybe if you could talk about, what are some of the networking events, the social activities, the evening functions that that you guys have planned that'll help facilitate that meaningful connection that you talked about even earlier on in the conversation with, folks networking with one another. What do you have planned for fun? I know you particularly, you're always coming up with something, fun, exciting, entertaining. It's Miami after all, and so I mean, you picked a great venue. So, what do you guys have planned?
No, listen, we work hard and we play hard here at IGEL, and our customers do the same. So the real value often happens between the sessions, right? So we have designed and structured informal and formal networking opportunities. Some things I call it, obviously, I mentioned earlier, there's going to be executive roundtable dinners. We have some industry specific meetups. Some of our sponsors will be having, innovation sessions and having their own meetups. We have the evening receptions. One thing new this year is we will have a golf tournament on the last day. So space is limited for that. But we'll be, for people that want to cut loose after, a very intense couple of days, can get out there on the golf course and enjoy some of the sunshine and fresh air. Of course, it is Miami, and it would go without, saying that it's a waterfront venue. So, it's a beautiful area that, after a long day of sessions, of learning, stuff like that, just be on a walkout back of the iconic Fontainebleau, take it all in. We were right on the beach. It's going to be a beautiful, beautiful setting. Last year we set a very high bar with our closing party at Live nightclub, arguably one of the most iconic nightclub venues in the U.S., maybe the world. We had Shaggy perform. I'll say this: it was a very funny little anecdote. So Shaggy performed at Live nightclub at our closing party. Everyone had a great time. He did a great job. Fast forward to November, and I'm watching the Macy's Day Parade, and who comes out? But they got float with Shaggy on the float. And not only that, but my phone started ringing off the hook because on the float, Shaggy was surrounded by people in yellow tracksuits. And if you don't have it, I'll send you guys an image of it because I snapped some images of it. But now I don't want to say that IGEL, beyond our expertise in preventive security and BCDR, somehow has got our finger on the pulse of, the music world and fashion and couture. But I did quite a few people said to me, "Hey, didn't you wear a yellow tracksuit on stage with Shaggy just a few months earlier?" And I said, "Indeed, I did." So perhaps that influenced, maybe not, but it was pretty cool to see him out there doing his thing, seeing those yellow tracksuits. Now, I'll say this. Unfortunately, at the time of this recording, we have not yet revealed our performer for 2026. We're keeping that under wraps. It's going to be a big announcement. So I will encourage everyone listening to this, go to the website. Chances are by the time this goes live, we may have them announced already. But, we certainly try and set the bar pretty high and deliver an experience, a fun experience that matches the scale and the ambition of the show as it relates to the more serious technical aspects. So we're going to have a great star out there. It's going to be a lot of fun for everybody. We want this to be a complete experience for our attendees.
And I'm sure we'll definitely, when we find out who it is, and it's public, we will definitely spread the word and let folks know. Because, like you said, the Shaggy event last year was phenomenal, and I did see Shaggy on the Thanksgiving Day parade and thought the same thing. So,
yeah, fantastic. Yeah, we're revitalizing endpoint security and music careers here at IGEL.
Now, if somebody is still on the fence at this point, I mean, they're wrong. They should have gone and signed up by now. But if they're still thinking about it and saying, maybe I can catch up on the content later online, what would be your message to them? And what are they going to be missing besides the great entertainment, the great networking sessions, all that stuff that you're going to gain by being there at the show?
Listen, you can watch recordings, you can read recaps. You can't replicate the room, right? What you risk missing is the candid conversations, that unscripted insight from a peer facing similar pressure to you, right? The side discussion that maybe reshapes this part of your roadmap, or maybe that one connection that becomes a long-term strategic partner. So attending an event like this, that human element, right, that you just can't get sitting at your desk or sitting on the couch looking at your iPad, right? You're gonna miss, the clarity, the confidence, that strategy that you can take back to your leadership team, maybe to your board. Those networking opportunities, things like that. I would say if someone's serious about operationalizing zero trust and not just talking about it, Miami's going to be where that happens, right? So we're open. You can go to the website, reserve your spot. We have made one other thing we've added this year is in addition to just you can acquire a ticket to the event and then book your hotel room. We've put together hotel bundles and heavily subsidize those. I will be very transparent. IGEL is going to, if you come, you book, you buy the bundle, you're getting the hotel room well below market rate. We have a 3-night hotel bundle. We have a 4-night hotel bundle. We've tried to eliminate the cost as a factor for attending. It is, I think, by far the greatest value conference that we can deliver in terms of the amount of effort and investment we put into it. At the same time, we've done everything we can to make it something that can work within anyone's budget overall. So I encourage everyone, hit the website, check out the agenda, and I look forward to seeing them all join, everyone join us in Miami in 2026. It's going to be a great event.
Well, thanks for taking the time to speak with VMblog and tell us about the event. Is there anything that we missed or anything that you want to say in closing?
No, I think we covered a lot today. I want to thank both of you guys for coming down. Obviously, VMblog has been a big part of the Now Next experience and your support and the vision you guys have in being at the forefront of providing key information to your readership aligns very much with our aim of making this conference a conference that people can come and again learn a lot, walk away with things that are going to help them advance their careers, advance their organization's security posture overall. So, I hope that if anyone has any questions, feel free to reach out to me or any member of my team. But again, we're looking forward to having a fantastic time at the end of March at Now Next.